number is.
It's time, so we can call the meeting order. We have a quorum. Hi, Marilyn.
Hello,
All right, so we're gonna start with introduction of new members. I think maybe we'll just go ahead and make introductions all the way around since almost basically half of us are new, right? So I'm Phil Nysius, retired archaeologist from IUP and currently serving on the board for my 4th year. I don't know, I've lost track. Yeah, I've done it for 4 years now, I guess. So, and currently serving as chair. So,
Yeah, I think I've been here almost as long as you have.
yeah.
Matthew Moses, I'm a lawyer, corporate lawyer, Travis Callan downtown. And I am the liaison to the Economic Development Board. And I'll say it's been a very interesting board time I've been here.
My name is Alan Holtfelder. I'm a recently retired architect, worked for MCF Architecture for 38 years. Lived in Mount Lebanon for 38 years. Both my kids went to school here. Graduated a little over on Carnegie Drive. So happy to be a part of this.
I'm Grace Gartman. I'm a recent transplant, will be 2 years this summer. I'm a school teacher, teach 5th grade math and science, not in Mount Lebanon yet. But my master's in historic preservation, and I've done lots of internships in archaeology preservation and the like. I have equal passions for education and preservation. So I'm excited to do both. Yeah, happy to join.
I'm Doug Devlin. I have a small architectural firm, Devlin Architecture, here in Mount Lebanon. Raised 4 kids here, all out of school now. We live in Mission Hills. My wife has a business here as well. So we've been here, Mount Lebanon, 25 years. So we're not quite natives.
What's your
I don't know
wife's,
if you ever are.
what's your wife's business?
She's partners in a financial consulting firm. DWD is the name of the portfolio consultant. Technically, we're across the line in Scott, but we had both of our businesses in the house for a number of years. And, but yeah, so glad to be part of the board. I have Carmine Carapello is how I got involved. He encouraged me to fill out the application like a year ago. And I know he's not on the board anymore, but he used to work with me and his departure.
Great. Marilyn, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Marilyn Oberst Horner. I've been on the board, oh gosh, 3 years. I think I came in after Phil and Matthew, but anyway, I'm the vice chair of the board. Phil does all the hard stuff. I'm just there to fill in. My background, I work for a state senator, Lindsey Williams, up in northern Allegheny County. And I had originally my bachelor's degree was in urban planning. And so that's how I came to this, but by way of a different career path, but it was always my joy and interest. So I'm back serving on the board. Oh, and do you want to know how long I lived in Mount Lebanon? Sorry. I've lived here since 2001. So about 22 years. My kids went all through school. They were basically raised here. They weren't born here, but pretty much raised here all through school. So I live on Nevado Place, teeny little street in the historic district between, let's see, right off of Cochrane and Bower Hill Road.
You go ahead.
I'm Laura Lilly. I'm your staff liaison, so I don't vote. I'm basically just here to help you get what you need and help you be successful. I've lived here for 29 years. I have a grown kid in college. Well, almost grown. I live on Altadena, and my day job, I'm a public information officer for Mount Lebanon, and I'm editor of Mount Lebanon magazine. So a lot of the stuff that I do in my day job helps this group, especially with education, with historic district, historic properties, and other things. So we'll talk about that more as we go on.
Thanks. I'm Mindy Rainey. I also don't vote. I'm a commission liaison. There's 5 elected officials, and I get to be on this board and serve as liaison to the municipality. I also have several other boards that I serve on. I've been on the commission 3.5 years now. And I love historic preservation. We've gotten some great work done in the past couple of years on brick streets. As as the board members know, and when that gets on public discussion, I'll let you all know it's going to be in the next month or two. We're gonna bring it back and sort of, you know, keep it moving, so we finalize what our brick street preservation policy is. So that's one of my favorite things that I've been working on for the past couple of years.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, I don't see, do we have any citizens' comments?
We have no citizens. So no, all right.
Okay. So we can get right into the first thing I think we need to take care of here is we select the new officers. I am going to propose, given the situation, and I'm willing to carry on for the next year and final year of the Preservation Board, actually, since it's this transition time. And I'm happy to do that unless someone really has a burning desire for the power and authority of chairing this board. That's done it. He knows how much power and authority there is. Yeah. So, and I don't know if Marilyn's willing, I'd love to have her continue on as my vice chair.
I'd be happy to, Phil.
So, any comments?
So if there's any other nominations, it's kind of a speak now thing, and if there aren't, you can approve it as a slate. If there are, we can do each vote individually.
I'd say let's slate it.
So we just need somebody to make a motion to approve Phil Nicias as the chair and Marilyn Oberst Horner as the vice chair.
So seconded.
You can take comment from anybody if there is any.
Any comments?
Thank you.
And then we can call a vote.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right. That's taken care of. All right, the next thing is we need to, because we have new folks and we've been struggling along with just 4 for the last couple of months. To look at our various liaisons and I don't know that they're really committees per se, but working groups,
Working groups, yeah, like that,
you know,
where we get our work done. A lot of work
Yes.
happens outside this meeting. We come here, vote, discuss, maybe like fine tweak things, but most of the heavy lifting is done in working groups, right?
right, and the liaisons, one of the more important functions, I think, of the board is as liaisons to various other parts of the municipality. So that there is a voice for historic preservation, so we know what people are planning, we can make comments, you can, as a liaison in those contexts. Give them some advice, make sure that they're sensitive to historic preservation and their plans and so forth. So it's a liaison, you're a non-voting member, you're just sitting in there for comment and to give advice if needed. And report back to us what people, what that group's up to or something that might be impacting historic preservation. So,
And most of the liaisons, you could attend virtually. I think it'd be hard to attend Historical Society virtually, maybe, or is that?
no, they do, there's
They do it?
hybrid as well,
Okay.
actually, so. Some of us have been filling in sort of a temporary basis, just waiting for you guys to show up. So we can start with historic signage, and there's not a lot going on there. I think Mary Ellen was willing to continue on with that. Or,
She said she was, yeah.
yeah, so I think there, because we don't have. Basically, we've got that work done. Signs are going up. It's more, if we get more money, we can maybe think about more signs, but they've been designed, we've got now the template, the designs that are going up, so.
But tell them what the signs are. I don't know. You guys know, sign toppers.
Yeah, they're on the street signs. I just saw them appear like a few weeks ago and I was like,
Right, they're just little toppers that go on the street signs that we're putting up around in the historic district.
So there's, just so I get a grasp on this, there's then 8 committees or working groups that you need liaisons for? Are they all listed here on the agenda, the continuing business and liaison?
Well, the continuing business are sort of our in-house working groups for projects that we've been working on. Or will be working and continuing to work on. And then the liaison, where it says liaison reports, those are where we need liaisons to other groups. Someone to just attend, sit in on those.
So that means attending a meeting, liaison groups are attend a meeting, virtual is fine. If you miss a couple, it's also fine, it happens.
Well, and also, I mean, a lot of times we share, I mean, if you
Yeah.
can't, you're not gonna be able to go to a meeting, you can just email the rest of the board, say, hey, can somebody fill in for me? And people generally, somebody's, if they're
Yeah.
free, they're happy to do that. I mean, it's not a lot of work or anything to do, you know, but we do want to have a presence in most of those if we can. But since all those meetings are public, we can always check up on them later.
Yeah, all of them, they're all recorded too, so if you
Yeah.
couldn't attend, you always could just watch it the next day and drop a report next meeting, so.
Is Historical Society recorded? That one might not.
Yeah, that's not a municipal
Okay,
meeting.
because that was the rest, but the rest. So, yeah, so you're right. So the continuing business, those are like the working groups, subcommittees, like a project to jump in that's related to Historic Preservation Board. And everything else is a once a month meeting, except design committee doesn't even meet that often. Is that true?
Right.
Okay. And comprehensive plan, is that even every month? Not lately,
No, that's,
every other month.
and basically, I mean, I'll finish off with that, because I've been doing that. It's basically being part of a task group within the comprehensive planning group, so
Okay.
we have a meeting coming up Thursday, maybe our last one, I think. We'll see.
So how many members are we?
7
7 for 8
or 8 spots, but
spots. So somebody doubles up on something.
yeah, or
Okay.
the committees often work better, that continuing business thing with 2 people, because you're doing a lot of work. It's a lot more time.
Right, so I think, you know, Mary Ellen is happy, what little that remains to be done with signage there, and in terms of brick streets, I think Matt and I have been playing with this for so long that we're probably happy to finish out the year doing that. The main thing is we don't have anyone that's interested in public education. As he looks at the teacher.
We'll look at the teacher.
Well, some folks have expressed, I think Mariana said she's willing to help with that. But we certainly need to get probably several people on board with that, because we do want to do at least one public education event this year.
Okay.
We have some funds to do that even,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we need to spend that money. So it's somebody that's interested in public education and likes to spend money.
Tell me we only have $1,500. That's.
No, yeah.
Did that mean attending First Fridays for public education and outreach?
It could, I mean, that's something, we had some ideas, but because when sort of our membership, the board
Dwindled.
dropped, we sort of haven't really pursued that much.
So there's a lot of freedom to do what you
Lot
want
do
in there.
whatever we
There's
want.
ideas, but
Do some ideas, but we do need to have some volunteers to get on board with education events.
I'd be happy to. That's fine.
So I guess just as background, is there more things open or should like multiple people sign up for this or?
Well, I think you'll find that multiple folks on the board will be helping with it one way or the other. With this is the person we assign at this point are the ones who will report to the board about what's going on.
okay.
You know, I mean, you'll get ideas here at this meeting.
So everyone can help, but we want
Right.
one person to be pointed.
And so always, you know, the first thing is have somebody that's on point with it, so that oversight.
But we'll all help.
But, oh yeah, I mean, we generally all are involved in public ed events. I mean, we've done some, we played around with, we did one First Friday, right, where we set up a little table with the district map and talked to folks about that there is a historic district. Let them look and see if they had a house in the historic district, that they could buy a medallion for their house, and people were kind of really pretty interested. I was surprised how many people had no idea
Mhm.
that either that we had an historic district or where it was. We're surprised to find out that they not only lived in the historic district, but their house was contributing.
And sometimes reverse. The house is not contributing and why? Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the type of event. Before my time, this board's done some more extensive public education events related to architecture. I think, that was another idea that was passed around, but So if you're willing to participate, that'd be great. Mary Ellen said, I think she's happy to help with that too.
Bill, if I may, I would suggest on Brick Streets, let's see the policy that ultimately passes. I think on that, our Brick Streets Committee is currently, policy is currently articulated, has municipality having a representative to a coalition of what we'd like to develop from other communities that have brick streets. And the problem with brick streets, broadly speaking, is how expensive they are relative, anyway, maintenance wise relative to non-brick. So the thought on that came out of our policy, which we spent some time developing, is see if we can develop coalitions with other communities in order to come up with cost saving measures, group purchasing, that sort of thing. So I think once that policy is approved, we're probably going to have some very immediate discussions in this group about how we want to structure that.
Yeah.
Representatives, and my feeling is, if we want to advance that group, we're probably going to need to lead it. So I'd suggest, let's get the policy passed and then revisit that.
Yes, good idea.
And I think that that'll be a fairly vigorous activity going forward.
And real quick on brick streets, I did talk to Aspenwall and they are interested in combining bids for materials and labor, and they have a good person they like who's reconstructed a few streets. So anyway, just thought I'd give you that little report.
Okay, so who else knows that?
Who else knows that? Just me,
Okay, awesome.
just me and Aspenwall.
Maybe, would you mind sending me an email with that? And I'm gonna forward it on just to make
I
sure.
will. I just heard back from her today. So yeah, I will. Yes, I will send that to you.
That's good news.
All right, so, comprehensive plan, like I said, I'll keep working on that, that's fine. Matt, you willing to fill out this last year on the development council?
Yep.
Historical Society, I did that 1 month to fill in. If somebody else is interested in getting to know the Historical Society, I'd be happy to let them do that.
Does everyone know what that is? Maybe a refresher. It's a nonprofit entity that's not run by the municipality. So these are advisory boards that advise the commission and the municipal employees directly and manager, and we make ordinances and pass policy. The Historical Society is a nonprofit that has no real regulations, isn't using taxpayer funds, accepts donations, and can have a lot larger of a mission in scope and a lot less restrictions in how they operate. I don't know, you want to tell them anything else?
Well, just that, and I don't mean to be picking on Grace, but when I was at the meeting last month, that your name came up as a possible liaison, how they would love to have you as you were.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that instead of public education if someone else would want to take public
Okay,
education.
that makes sense.
Yeah, because I can't remember his name. I spoke to him I went to Andrew's launch
Okay.
party. I can't remember when it was, a few months ago. I spoke to who's the
Jeff
president?
Bird.
Yeah, yes. I spoke to him, a lot about it. Yes. And yeah, absolutely.
We always say they're the keeper of the memories and we're the makers of or the recommenders of the policies.
Mhm.
How about that? That helps kind of clear it up.
That's great.
Are they
Do
the
some
ones that
wonderful-
offer tours? and
Yes,
all of
yes.
that?
They operate the historical society. It's basically a museum, not a museum for like, they don't call it that, but history center.
Well, that's an important liaison position. to work
Yeah.
with them.
Okay, so I have Mary Ellen doing historic signage. I have Matthew and Phil continuing on brick streets. So then we need somebody for public education.
Should we want to walk through the other positions and then everyone has an idea what everybody
Yeah.
anything
That's
is?
a good idea. And if I may, let me just offer, if anybody wants to take over Economic Development Council, that's fine with me too. It tends to be pretty interesting. Happy to continue that.
Right.
I'm just saying, if someone's very interested in taking that over, I can see that they can shadow.
And so do you want to say what that is or what? they do?
Sure. So the Economic Development Council is all about economic performance of Mount Lebanon broadly, focusing a lot of time in the uptown and downtown business districts, but Above and beyond that, also dealing with dynamics of mobility, so usage of our streets above and beyond the brick streets component, which is sort of an hour bailiwick. And they're actively re-examining those dynamics because of all the different methods of transportation that we've got, including the T and the heavier use of bicycles and that sort of thing. And the mission right there sort of fundamentally is to facilitate these other forms of transportation above and beyond traditional use of just cars. So that's let me say that's a very busy activity that they're undergoing right now. And that's a well-staffed group and some very interesting people. Unfortunately, they meet at 7:30 in the mornings on Fridays.
That's the downside.
That is, That's
the
interesting.
Friday. And I don't think they like that, and I don't think that's gonna.
I think that might
I
change.
think that's
I'm
gonna
not sure
definitely
where that came from. It's crazy talk to me, but in any case, hopefully that will change. The bottom line is, I don't think we need an answer right now, but if someone decides over the next couple of months that that's something that really is of interest to them. To me, I see no particular reason we couldn't think about shadowing and transition if desired.
So that's that board. The next Historical Society, I'm 11, we talked about that one.
Yep. So
Miami.
let Jeff know that.
When
Grace is
did they
good.
meet?
What's that?
When did they meet?
Uh,
Evening.
it's
Because I'm like,
7
I'm
o'clock.
part of Monroe.
Next, here I've got, where did I go?
Is it Thursdays at 7?
No,
Or is
it's,
it-
the next meeting will be May 17th at 7 PM.
So a Wednesday.
It's Wednesdays, yes, I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
so it's the third Wednesday of the month.
So they don't meet every month,
Oh,
they meet every other month on the third Wednesday.
Right, you should say, I think all of these meetings are monthly meetings, the same way they are.
Generally, some vary, like the Partnership Design Committee does meet on a regular basis. And if you can't make it, I'm happy to fill in.
I'm at 3:45 every day, so
Yeah.
I'm always out early in the morning, so.
Like I say, and they have it there, I assume they're gonna continue to do their meetings hybrid. The one I was at, about half of their board was there and half was on. Planning board,
That's me.
happy to keep doing that for us.
Sure. Yeah, it's a little dry. sometimes.
you want to explain what it is to everybody?
Sure. So the planning board in Mount Lebanon makes recommendations to the municipality on what to approve to build, basically, or tear down or whatever, anything that would affect zoning ordinances in the municipality as well. So you just go and listen to, usually there's a developer there saying what they want to do, and the planning board is deciding whether it fits within the zoning codes or whether it doesn't, or if they want the developer to add certain elements that bring it up to code or in zoning. So that's what it is. But it's been actually pretty interesting. And I like bringing the historic preservation side to it because that gets missed. They're just going through and they want to, they just want to approve or not approve or make the developer do this, that, and the other thing. It's just nice to have a little input from historic preservation because a lot of these projects are in the historic district and we want to make sure that stays, keeps its integrity. We don't want structures torn down if we can help it. They're contributing, etc. So
There's a meeting tomorrow, I think it's.
Yeah. That's the bummer about this meeting. It's always the day after our meeting here. So I'm reporting like a month behind, but that's just the way it goes.
And if anybody wants to attend and go with Marilyn, shadow it, see how it goes and see if you like it, that would be a way to kind of ease into it too. Do you attend in person or remote or both? I mean, either way.
It depends. It depends. I do it remote. I have to say the remote function is not so great if you have a question or you want to contribute something. They don't really see your hand go up.
Okay.
I think it's better to attend in person, but you can always follow up with Ian, the city planner, later in an email, and he's very responsive. So
So these meetings, basically you're going to all the zoning public meetings for the zoning
No,
approval.
planning. It's once a month. It's not bad. They're pretty, these people, they
They're
want
not
to,
like 3 and 4 hour meetings every time.
Every now
Yeah.
and then you'll get one time a year, there might be one, because there's a lot of public comments complaining about a development. But most of them, some of them get canceled because they don't have anything on the agenda.
that's right. That's right.
So in addition to its zoning and all the other aspects of planning, which seem to me to boil down to architecture and basement water penetration.
Yes.
The issue of where water goes here.
Yes.
I think that those tend to be pretty interesting, but to your point, like the larger developments definitely draw a lot of public comment and frequently antagonism.
Yes.
Can be interesting.
And unlike other advisory boards, the planning board actually has the task of preliminary approval. So they do grant preliminary approval and then they make a recommendation to the commission for final. So kind of what they do matters.
That's right.
Yeah, and so if we can give our architectural and historic input at the planning level, that's really the only place to give it. By the time it gets to the commission, we really just, there's not a lot of choices, but we almost legally have to approve it if it fits within our ordinances and codes. Otherwise, we'll get sued for not approving it.
But a good example of what the planning board and the historic preservation board suggested, if you think of the Rite Aid on Cook Lane above Mount Lebanon Shops there, when that was originally proposed, it was a drive-it building. And the planning board said, you know, it really doesn't drive it, while it's not illegal, it doesn't fit in with our aesthetic, it doesn't complement our buildings. All of the other buildings around are brick. So the planning board actually went back to them and said, would you consider brick with copper? And they said yes. And so it worked out. Now, we could not have required that because we don't have that type of legislation, but they were cooperative and it was done in a spirit of amicability that also happened too. Maryland wasn't there also a conversation with the townhouses as well?
Yeah, the townhouses on Pennsylvania Boulevard that are being proposed, they were kind of use some, you know, some siding that wasn't so nice. Anyway, so we submitted the plan. I brought up a suggestion to them with advice from the Historic Preservation Board on what to use. And they said, oh, yeah, okay, sure, we'll do that. So, but if no one had said anything, it wouldn't have happened. So, and I can't remember what the material was. Some
Party board.
there you go. Thank you. Party board. I'm not an architect.
The other dynamic, I think, that as a group, we sort of detected out of that is for the frequency of and whether we as a group seek to address tear downs, you know, which are frequently older buildings.
Yes.
And the question of facilitating or whether there should be opposition to tear downs that are then replaced with larger buildings, frequently less architecturally integrated styles and that sort of thing. And I think as a group, we've been aware of this dynamic and, you know, because of this report, you can get a sense of how frequent this is. It's pretty frequent. Ultimately, the decision we made is probably not to try to interface or interject in that. But I think from a long-term perspective, there will be, say it raises internal questions in the neighborhoods, you know, about whether a particular building fits into the environment of that neighborhood. And sometimes that results in then comments to this group where people, residents don't prevail in that committee and they come to this committee. So that can be interesting too.
That makes sense. I know we're dropping a lot.
There are also times when if something involves the federal government in terms of funding, permitting, licensing, or any involvement of the federal government, there's an entirely separate process that should come to us well before anything goes to planning or anyone else in the municipality in the very early stage of a project where they need to get their clearances from the SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office. And so we will get letters saying, oh, we're proposing this project, and usually the letter will say, we don't feel that it will adversely impact your historic district. We have the opportunity to comment and say to them, no, we disagree, that we feel it could have an adverse effect, and we would like to be a consulting party to any plans on this project. or designing of the plan. And that goes to the State Historic Preservation Office for approval or disapproval. So that is one, and that happens separately. So we usually take care of that because it happens well in advance of them submitting anything to the municipality's planning folks.
Do we want to maybe add some like reoccurring agenda item under continuing business, just to check in about that every month? I just want to make sure we carry that on for perpetuity.
Yeah. Yeah, we should probably make it a part of, well, become particularly important once we have
Yes.
this new committee formed.
Yeah, so maybe we put it on now and we just said, okay, no update, no update, no update, but then we're just.
Well, there's some
Yeah.
issues with that we need to consider.
Okay.
I was gonna bring that up later, but
Okay.
we can
Yeah. we
bring
can
it
talk
back to it
later.
now. With the reformulation of the new committee, we won't have an historic preservation board anymore.
Right,
We may not get those letters. I've been at a conference, a couple of big conferences here this past month and talked with some folks, Chapeau's and others, our state and other states and so forth. And technically, if we don't have an historic preservation board, they're not required to send us anything.
oh, I bet we can fix that, let's fix that, even, just,
Well, the Historical Society will still get the letters,
okay,
but we won't. And it's hard to fix because it's up to them to do due diligence to determine whether there's someone they need to send a letter to. And if there's nothing up front that says there's an historic preservation board or a historic preservation entity,
Mhm.
it's easy for them to just not do that. They would rather not do it because they know that we're likely to
Yeah.
say something, right?
Yeah, what if we made the authority, historic preservation authority, and it was just. One appointed person who was also on the other board and they funneled it through. Or something like
Yeah,
that, we can
something
talk to
like
legal.
that. I mean, we'll have to. That, I can talk with, folks in the State Historic Preservation Office about, if they've got ideas about how to best.
Yes,
deal with
how do
this.
we do that?
Because the primary thing is to make sure that we have a public presence.
Okay.
That says historic preservation or something about historic preservation, because the name of the new committee won't even mention
Yeah.
that. So it would be easy for a company that just wants to get their thing approved, right?
Yeah.
To not send anything to Mount Lebanon.
Okay,
Or as we saw with that one company, when they got a letter from us they didn't like, they contacted someone else in the municipality
Right.
and pretended like they got the approval. So it's just something that we need to be a little careful about and we're redesigning the committees.
so something on the website, some kind of public presence that really,
Well, Laura and I've talked about it. We're gonna have something right on the website about historic preservation and because we have a lot of good stuff on the website that we still want to
But the
make.
question is, you
available.
have to have an official name and be an official board with that name in order for it to get
Could it just be a
recognition.
single person? Like, could it be somebody who's called a liaison? With
Mm-hmm.
preservation, but does it have to be a board?
No, I mean, it's just, actually, all it has to be is a public name.
yeah,
It
okay,
doesn't have to be an official entity.
Okay.
It's just as something that, so that a company can't say, well, Mount Lebanon doesn't have anything about
Yeah.
historic preservation, so we didn't have to send them a letter. Right?
an authority,
So it's more like if we have something prominent, on our website,
Mhm.
then that someone couldn't ignore if they were doing their due diligence. But I think it would behoove us to have, even with the new committee, have a liaison to the Historical Society to make sure the Historical
Right.
Society lets us know if they get his letter, because it might fall through the cracks. We might not get it,
yeah,
no matter what, we do now. But the Historical Society will. And if they know, and at this point, we need to maybe just work with them a little bit. So that might be the best alternative.
I wonder if we have a staff member who has an ancillary title of historic preservation officer.
Mhm.
Because then that way it wouldn't rotate as people are appointed to this board as a permanent. It's permanently affixed to somebody's job description, like either Ian's or mine, where it
Yeah.
it has to come to us and then we.
That would be a
forward it
good
to-
idea. And basically, it's becoming to you as the
Right.
staff liaison for the preservation board, not coming to the board per se. So yeah, maybe that's the best solution.
We'll see what they say, see what would work for them.
So yeah, do you want to take the next step and and talk to the State Historic Preservation Board and then get back to me, or do you want me to?
I will, yeah, I'll touch base with the State Historic Preservation Office folks I know and say, hey, you got any ideas about to make sure that we are included in any correspondence? Some of right now with the current staff, Chapeau, they know about us.
Okay.
You know, so they would question, hopefully, if something came through and there was nothing from Mount Lebanon, because they know we have an historic district. So chances are the SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office would catch it.
I'm gonna just send one email just to a couple staff members and you, as well as like another way that we make sure we definitely
Just
do
yeah,
this year, you know,
Right.
so they know that you're gonna work on it, we'll take the next step, historic preservation will take the next step, but it's coming, and I'm copying you on it, that we
I'll
need to
just get
create
some,
something.
yeah, I'll just get some advice from them about.
Yeah,
Say, hey, this is what we're doing. We're basically getting rid of it, having a separate historic preservation board. That responsibility is being incorporated into this board.
mhm,
But how do we keep a public presence?
great.
Okay. Anyway. How we get sidetracked. Anyway,
That's an important piece
So
of
we're on the
information.
Partnership Design Committee, explaining what that is.
okay,
Let's take that one, try to explain that.
well, I think, I don't know that, and I've never participated in that.
I'll take it.
We need, yeah,
All right.
we need to have somebody, it'd be good to have some architectural.
Correct. It's always been a design professional. Mary Ellen filled in because we lost all our design professional. There will be a second stage of Vibrant Uptown. Once we get past the first one, that will look at placemaking and we'll look at public art and things of that nature. So this group will be looking at that and there will be a historic preservation component of that potentially. So we talk about the sign project being over, but it's possible that there might be an opportunity for historical markers within the context of that project. Also, again, making sure that because our uptown is in our historic district, making sure that any of the placemaking also enhances or at least doesn't detract from it. So this person would be this board's liaison to that committee. There is no regular, I can't give you a time when they meet. It's not regular. Eric Milliron is our commercial districts officer. He is the liaison to that group and he is very happy to sit down and meet at any time to talk over where things are. So
And that's an important job because right now with the Vibrant Uptown Street Vibrant Uptown Street construction, being near completion, we already.
Yeah.
Probably in my lifetime, we have some money set aside for design and the municipality does, and the Lebanon Partnership has taken the lead on art installations and other phases of the construction project that really focus more on where people can gather and what businesses need. We're gonna look at Clearview Commons and maybe redesign that. And there's a lot of opportunity for historic preservation, historical knowledge to come in. There's been talk in the past about signs for denoting historical places. And we have lots of potential areas we could put signs up. That could be a project to collaborate on, especially now that there's some funding for those types of things.
So we need volunteers.
So that's the whole, so we explained all the options. So what's open right now? Look, it looks like partnership design
Partnership
committees
design
open. That's a low time commitment. Planning board, Marilyn, do you want to stay on for sure? Or are you open to someone else taking that over?
I didn't realize I was muted. I am flexible, so I can stay doing it if no one else wants to, but I'm happy to let someone else do it as well.
Okay, and then historical society is definitely open. That was, you were
No.
just. Oh,
Grace is,
oh, yes, okay.
Grace is doing
What about
that.
one? Okay,
Matt's continuing on with the economic development.
Is that for sure? Or I was kind of intrigued by economic
If
development.
you're interested,
I don't need to take it over, but maybe I could shadow or something and then,
come to the next meeting with me, I'll project it to you. We'll see how it goes.
okay.
You can make a decision at that point. Sure.
so which
Um,
Friday is that one?
All right,
Which Friday is that one?
that is, where's the next one? The 28th, Friday, April 28th.
Isn't that a morning meeting, Matthew?
It is,
That was the 7:30 a.m.
yeah, lots of fun.
That's April 28th.
It is.
out of the country again. Sorry.
We can look at the meeting beyond that if you want.
And I'm gonna be 2 hours behind, so 7:30. That'll be 5:30. Well, nobody will be, I won't have any conflicts. I could zoom in, but I might have
If you
to, I
want.
might have to table it.
Yeah,
I'm
if
gonna
you want,
be,
why don't I share the meeting materials? You
Okay.
can look at them and then think about coming into the next meeting after that one.
Okay.
Meeting.
and then, I guess I'm interested in could help out with partnership design or you mentioned Clearview Commons as a prospective
Yeah.
future project. And
That's,
we did the pavilion for that years ago
oh, yeah.
with Paul Ostergaard,
It's-
because he was still with UDA at that point.
What about the fountain? Did that?
The Quattrobonsi,
Oh, yes, that's right.
they did the layout for everything and then. But I mean, I don't care. I mean, that's,
Definitely.
I kind of be interested in just seeing what's going on the streetscape with the uptown area. It's kind of our alley.
Okay, so the only one that's open now is public education.
So the planning board meets when?
They meet the third Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m.
Okay, I can't do that. I have another commitment.
Oh.
So that leaves me for public education.
All right, that's kind of what, it's one of the ones, what you make of it, how much work, you put in. Lots of ideas already with that.
Right, I mean, that one, at this point, we just need to start planning something, right? And that, as a group, it's not just up to you to do that, but
That's right.
we as a group will work with you to come up with some ideas, but you're sort of the point person.
So is there like some record of what's been done in the past? So we're either not repeating those, or you can at least see the
I'll sit
concept
down with you. I'll
activities.
sit down and go over what we've done. There hasn't been anything recently other than the first Friday.
Yeah, and then COVID hit.
But
we
we've
haven't
done some,
anything
we've done some
for years
projects in the
now.
past that I can go over with you.
Okay. Who's our audience? Just,
There's a couple different audiences. When the historic district was put into place, income producing properties are eligible for tax credits. So the business community was one of them, but that was one audience. Homeowners are another audience, members of the public are another audience, potential business owners are another one, so. The last large scale thing that this board did was a seminar called Good Design Makes Good Sense. They brought in national speakers to come in and they sold out Mellon Auditorium. With people just wanting to hear the relationship between good design and financial success, really how it makes sense. It's not just a lot of pretty things, it's something that can actually lead to success. I'm probably putting more of a financial spin on it than there was, but it was really well liked, attended, but there was unique education credits too, so it was a nice program. A lot of work, but it was nice.
And the Historical Society said that they would be interested in partnering with us, whatever we are planning to do too, so. And can't find it, so somewhere I can give you the name of the contact person. The Historical Society said that they'd be interested in working with us on that too, as sort of a member of that working group.
Something else this board did is, or talked about doing, I don't know if they actually did it because it was before my time, but they also did like an old house fair where you came in and maybe you talked to our building inspectors to talk about what you can do. And then maybe there were people there who kind of had no financial interest in it, but could tell you how to select an architect, how to select a builder, that kind of thing. Because that is one thing, we do get a lot of questions. And as the design people on the board, I will tell you, sometimes they'll call me and say, hey, I have a portico on my house, it's a Tudor. What kind of things can I put there and where do I even start? So obviously, we're not allowed to refer anybody to any design professionals, but at least we can kind of give them some things to think about from a design perspective, give them maybe some resources to go to if there's online resource books, and then kind of help them. And that really makes them feel like they're supported in their mission to keep their home as architecturally cohesive as it. So usually when that happens, I'll send an email out to everybody saying, I have a caller, this is their name, who wants it? And then usually somebody will say, I'll take it.
And that's in the public education
It's,
part?
it's
of
not
this?
really in the department. That's just another thing that this board has
That-
done. Yeah. But
Okay.
we have in the past had office hours actually, where board members have said, okay, the second Tuesday of the month at 4 p.m., come out to the Mount Lebanon Library. There'll be somebody from the Historic Preservation Board, bring your blueprints, bring your photos of your house and sit down and have questions. And it wasn't really for specific advice, but more kind of overall. We did have a great partnership with the Community Design Center of Pittsburgh for a while, where for $150, somebody did get a rough sketch from a design professional who volunteered. But the Design Center of Pittsburgh has since not offered that program. And then they did offer it to more represented communities than Mount
Yeah,
Lebanon.
we participated in that
It was,
for a little bit of time there.
yeah. We had some homeowners that really found it helpful. And even if they didn't necessarily go with that design professional, at least maybe let them know that, okay, what I want is not attainable or,
A lot's not attainable right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
It's
But lots of
crazy,
possibilities.
crazy time, I can tell you.
it would be good. And a lot with these continuing business committees, usually you'll have the point person on this board and you can take up to 4 people with you, well, a total of 4, before you would have a quorum where you can have a committee meeting. You can go sit on somebody's patio and spitball some ideas and then bring them back to the board for some educational ideas that you have. So that's your. What else? Okay, so is that everybody? So I have Mary Ellen on historic signage. I have Matthew and Phil on brick streets. I have Ellen on public education. I have Phil on comprehensive plan, Matthew on economic development with maybe some pinch hitting from Doug. I have Grace for historical society. I have Marilyn staying on the planning board and Doug on the partnership design committee.
Does everyone know who's doing the liaison meeting, when the next meeting is?
Partnership design committee was
No,
ad hoc.
yeah,
It was,
yeah.
okay, so you just have to get.
So I'll introduce you via email to Eric.
Oh, hey,
Oh, there is a.
Well, I was just telling Grace that,
Oh,
don't worry, when we let Jeff know, he will send you, he will get you, put you into their,
I have his emails.
he'll put you in their email distribution list for the board and you'll get notices, including
I'll connect you.
minutes,
Eric, by
updates,
email.
agendas, that kind of stuff. So well ahead of time.
Great.
All right, great.
Minutes.
Oh, where are we? Oh, yeah, consider, we gotta do minutes.
Okay.
All right, so we can have a chance to look at minutes from our last meeting was actually in February. And I suppose technically only.
It won't pass if they don't vote, because it would be 3 to 3 and it would fail, so.
So 3 abstentions and 3 approvals, but we'll assume that Mary Ellen would approve 2.
Yeah, so there's some stuff about making and vibrant uptown in the minutes, so that'd be interesting for design committee or for
Right.
everybody.
Yeah,
So I
Mary
need
Ellen.
somebody to just make an official motion to approve the minutes.
So we need someone to make a motion. Well,
So moved.
Marilyn, you want to second that motion?
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. All right. Administrative reports. I don't really have too much, like I said, I've been at these committees. The one thing that there was a lot of discussion at these conferences I've been to, and really more to archaeology, but also historic preservation and what a lot of these firms that do cultural resource management, historic preservation work are expecting here is a lot of work because of the infrastructure approvals. There's a lot coming down the pike. And where that applies to us is a lot of this is all federally funded. So it's all going to hit the National Historic Preservation Act, Section 106 approval process, if any come to our community.
Okay.
And it's like right now, primarily the things we've had to deal with have been cell phone towers, which require federal licensing and permitting, rather than funding. But there could be something. And one thing that we need to keep in mind is it's obvious when something's happening in the historic district that there's a potential to impact a property on the National Register. But the law says, okay, it is properties that are on the National Register or are potentially eligible for the National Register.
Oh, nice.
And as we are particularly as we are thinking about in the comprehensive plan, expanding our district. Okay, those properties are potentially eligible. And so we need to just be aware of that. And if we see that, oh, there's something, projects may be coming down the pike that might impact a part of our community that potentially would be eligible, or that we would like to consider in the future, we have the opportunity to, just like we do with this, with cell phone towers, say that we would like to be a consulting party on the plans for this, because it will have to go through the State Historic Preservation Office. And a lot of times, developers will sort of ignore the potentially eligible phrasing in the National Historic Preservation Act, but it doesn't just apply to things that are on the register. And here's the advantage we might have it's unlikely that anything like this is going to happen. But a development or something that was federally subsidized housing, for example, came aboard, they would have to do the work to determine the eligibility of the property before they can proceed. That would be doing part of the work we would want to have done in order to create a district.
Nice.
Just as we got that through the PennDOT, technically, we got that Brick Street policy started, that was part of a mitigation for the PennDOT getting rid of, using federal funds to get rid of a brick street. They were required to do that study. Okay, so if something else came down along those lines in some other part of the community, if we're paying attention, right? They might still destroy part of the district, but they would have to mitigate that impact to the potentially eligible parts of our community, right? So that's just something to keep in mind, because I hadn't thought of that until I was having conversations with some folks. They said, well, if we paid attention to this,
Yeah.
sometimes.
So the new folks might not know, not all Mount Lebanon is in a historic district, but some of Mount Lebanon qualifies for a historic district. If this board has the time and resources to do that work to expand what our historic district is.
And something with the comprehensive plan, I've been trying to make the point that we need to think about that in terms of the community as a whole, because, for example, Duquesne Street has probably lost any possibility of becoming part of an expanded district because we took their brick street out.
We did it.
What's that? Okay, not
You
you,
did it.
not you and I. The municipality took it out. And it didn't go through our boards.
Greenlight
It did. It actually I just want to clarify that it did come to this board and the board was okay with it.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
But
so-
everybody forgets that.
It wasn't a historic district, and so now we really
Right,
need to think,
because-
would it qualify for historic district?
Right, the problem with that plan that PennDOT hired a firm to put together focused primarily just on the historic district, and it sort of ignored, it didn't totally ignore, but it didn't give as high a ranking to a street that wasn't in the district. Every brick street within the district got an extra point for being in the district, so they came on top and speak, well, these are the ones you need to preserve. And so Public Works said, well, it's not, in the district, so we have some stormwater issues down at the bottom of this hill, so we're just gonna replace it with asphalt. But
No, yeah,
part of it was,
The
and
foundation was-
that's what set in motion all this work to create the policy we have now. The first thing that was changed immediately, and I'll give our folks in the municipality credit, when we pointed out, you gotta have public comment early, you can't wait till the end. They changed that right away, because the old policy that Public Works had was they waited till a contract was let to change the street. And then it was the contractor's responsibility to notify the people. So the people on Duquesne found out that their street was being destroyed when the tractors were there, basically. And they came and visited us. And said, what's going on? So we got the heat. And so that's why, and that part's changed now there. And also I think this board is much more aware of that potential.
yeah.
So things have changed for the good, for the better.
This that's online of all the different brick streets, does it have designation of whether it's in the historic district or without, outside the historic
You,
district?
you can find, if you go online, you can find that PennDOT plan that was produced. That's on, and
So we have
Yeah.
a repository. You guys probably got invited to it. It's in there, a OneDrive repository.
Yeah, so it lists every street.
there is a chart in there that lists every brick street.
Right.
In the
Does it- on that
municipality.
chart, does it also list whether it's in the historic
Yes.
district or not?
Yes,
Okay.
you'll see the ranking system they use because
Okay. Yeah.
it's got a point value for being in the historic district as one of the columns in the chart.
Okay.
And what's that called? PennDOT? What would that document?
I can see what it's
In the
exactly called.
repository.
I'm not.
So did you get access to the repository?
Yes.
Yeah, the SharePoint, exactly.
I looked at it just quickly.
Of course, I couldn't read everything. Just, it's in there. Okay, good.
Okay.
Right. And so for a number of years, of course, I mean, Public Works was relying on that as their document to determine whether or not to keep a brick street.
Right.
But the problem with it was it sort of eliminated brick streets that weren't in the district from being fully considered as being worth preserving. And the new policy is changing that. So anyway, those are just things we sort of need to be aware of. I just wanted to get on my soapbox and mention that.
Important. No, it's important.
It was a good overview, Phil.
People that live on, I'm just curious, live on the brick streets and cobblestone streets, how do they generally feel about it?
In the survey,
Yeah,
Positive,
You go ahead.
negative? I mean, there's noise, they're really slippery actually too.
most people like
Rising
some,
degree of support.
yeah.
I expected support. I was pretty amazed. But, yeah,
No, I was
it's very
wondering.
high.
I love them, but I just.
Does it increase the property values?
if we could make
That's
that
part of the
case, that would
theory.
really
It's
help.
hard to demonstrate that.
You could try to track it over time, get our real estate agent on it.
So
Not
part of the
every day.
reason for this committee that the policy provides for is to try to build measurement methods to realize and understand the value of these things. Just because on one side, there's an actual cost of preservation. But the working theory is it affects many things, including property values and public safety and other dynamics that difficult to measure, but probably will.
Well, you could probably get a speed gun out there and show that if it's true, that it slows traffic down compared to other streets perhaps. I don't know.
You would need a traffic study,
Yeah.
put on the traffic board too, and those are pretty big, yeah.
But the people who live on those streets will tell you that it does. I mean, we had a lot of input from the public during this whole process. And we actually had a former chair of the board taught a class at Carnegie Mellon, a graduate course on ways to develop a policy on brick streets. They're the ones that actually did this survey, community-wide survey, and that's where what Matt's referring to is what we were all surprised at the positive response in terms of people. Yeah, we love our brick streets. Not only do we love our brick streets, we're willing to pay more money to keep them. Like,
Yeah, they're willing to have a small increase to their taxes to keep the brick streets. It was pretty overwhelming majority of people said that.
which was a surprise to all of us and to the municipality
Yeah.
as a whole.
And so it's, if you just look at pricing out, bidding out, reconstructing, which is like the full depth, all the layers of the street, full depth asphalt versus reconstructing brick. Reconstructing brick is probably 3 times as expensive as reconstructing a full depth asphalt. And it's hard to say which street's gonna last longer. They probably have a pretty comparable lifetime of the full depth asphalt versus brick. Both need some maintenance. There's milling overlay, which happens with the full depth asphalt, and then the bricks themselves need some maintenance, some brick maintenance every year. So if you're just looking at that one number, which the municipality understandably has been doing for the past 50-some years, there tends to be not a reconstruction of Brick Street because it's 3 times as much money. So it's our job and has been our job over the past couple of years to make the case economically and otherwise, all the other benefits. Some of them are maybe economic, they might be a stretch or a guess that Brick Street does add. And it definitely helps to have the Carnegie Mellon work and the survey that they did that says residents love it and want to pay for it. Other people that are commuting don't love it. They don't want it to cut through for tree because why it's loud, they have to slow down.
Which is exactly the
It's
point.
exactly why the people that live on there.
Living on Jefferson and having a speed bump right at my drive cut.
Yeah.
So value that
Traffic
is-
calming.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, so there's,
So even that study from Carnegie Mellon should be on the SharePoint as well, I think, right?
It is, I'm having some internet.
okay.
issues here,
If
so.
you're really interested. I mean,
Stick around, it's fun.
it's a longish document. Because it was a pretty comprehensive study that they did and.
There was, yeah, quite a number of interesting meetings about it, including from contractors, manufacturers of brick, other communities that use brick streets. So if we want to try to develop metrics around that, there's gonna be a fair amount of work, and community relationship building on it.
That's a good topic.
Okay, so anyway, that's my report.
Right. I will be up next, 6 o'clock. I want to talk about the board restructuring, and this will just be an ongoing reoccurring agenda item that I can talk about from here on out, so. We'll be working together on this, but the history is that Mount Lebanon over the last few decades has been adding advisory boards. This is an advisory board that advises the commission directly, and you represent residents and what you think is in the best interest of current residents as well as the long-term goals of the municipality. So it's very, very important. They've been very beneficial for directing policy and other decisions that the elected officials and the municipality makes. But over time, there's gotten to be so many boards. Depending on how you count, we have 15 or 16. Some of them are COGS, which are like nearby other communities that are coming together, like SHACOG and Connect. Some of them are nonprofits like the Mount Lebanon Partnership. And it means that there's a lot of meetings for the commission and the municipal staff to attend. And there's a lot of overlap in some of their work, and it's resulted in people being spread too thin and board members feeling like their work doesn't really matter and they don't know how it fits into the bigger picture. So we kind of took a step back, and there's been attrition. There's always attrition. These are volunteer boards and people quit for a lot of reasons, but there's been some frustration on some boards more than others that they don't really see that their ideas have enough support and it's not worth their time to volunteer. So we took a step back over the last year or two and really thought about what are the main areas that we need advice and support on and how can we structure that. And this is our first take, I'm going to say, on it, because it might evolve in time and we might end up adding another board in or changing the composition a little bit more. But we're taking 10 of the advisory boards and condensing them down to 5. We'll still have some other boards that are legally required, such as planning, zoning, hearing board, the library board. The library is really their own entity. So they don't really fit within this exact same structure as like directly advising the commission. They have their own, those boards have their own and a separate ordinance and state regulations around them. So we'll kind of keep the conversation to the 10 boards that will be grouped together into the new 5, and the names of the boards, I'll just tell you all of them real quick, so you just have so many people I want to do a little bit of a brain dump, and then you can spend some time in the document and we can get into it more next month. Civic engagement is what is the community relations board. The next one, mobility and transportation. That is the traffic board plus, what else is on the mobility and transportation?
Economic, environmental sustainability.
Environmental, oh wait, no, that's not mobility and transportation. That's,
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about.
oh yeah, that's okay. But the
Those are
mobility.
parking facilities.
Yeah, parking facilities, traffic, mobility and transportation is going to be really interesting. there's a lot of problems and a lot of complaints that we've gotten around pedestrian traffic, bike traffic, and how we don't have a place where those kind of issues can go, or even the ideas of sidewalks. When a resident wants a sidewalk, there's not a board to support that initiative. So this is, we're looking kind of holistically at mobility and transportation and including all the other ways to do that. Right now, we just have the trash. So that will be expanding, I think, and filling a big need that we have in our void right now. Parks and Rec is parks and sports. That's kind of straightforward. That matches how basically every other municipality in the country structures if they have a parks related advisory board. Financial management is what is currently pension, and that brings us to either resiliency or which or what's the other one?
Sustainability.
Sustainability and economic development. Those are the two names that we're floating around. We're gonna keep it sustainability and economic development for now. But it might, if it kind of makes sense over time, switch to resiliency, because that's that's the current buzzword in that space. So we're gonna see if it kind of sticks around and makes sense. That's where historic preservation goes, and like Bill mentioned, doesn't specifically scream out historic preservation. So that's gonna be one of the challenges that we have over this year and beyond, is to make sure that people understand that's where historic preservation board lives. And I totally recognize that that's a challenge. And the first task that we're being asked to do is to document historically all the work that the Historic Preservation Board has done to the best of our knowledge that we're aware of. And that's a document to keep for prosperity. And then once that is in a good place, then as a board to look at what we want to make sure we continue for perpetuity. What tasks do we see are the most important moving forward? And so we have, we have a lot of time to do this, but so that it plugs in with the other boards and we have lots of time to review it, we're asking the board to be done with that work in August sometime, if possible. So to have the draft of current duties, tasks that each advisory board does, including all your annual activities, any quasi-judicial functions, completed in August. And then start to also think about and document what the ongoing work that you want to make sure happens as well. So preservation of current duties and continuation of current tasks. And I'd like to maybe be a little like audacious and say by August, we could do all of that. By the end of August, we could do all of that. And then as we think of things for the rest of the year, there's no reason why we can't add them in there. I foresee this as being a live document on our OneDrive folder, as long as that works for everyone and new people can get in and edit it. But I was going to ask today if there could be one person that could just start that initial brain dump for the rest of us, and then we can all pile on. One person in mind, but and you don't have to jump at it right now.
You keep looking at me.
Exactly, because you have so many great ideas already in your head. I mean, really, every time you talk, I want to write every single thing you say down. So I'm like, let's do that formally. I could talk to you on the phone or something about that too.
Yeah, I can start, although, I mean, some of the problem is, I think we need to. I don't know how well things are documented from before I came on.
Yeah,
board.
just what
Because
you know
it's
is
really-
it starts.
Because COVID has been a major portion of the part I've been here, so we
Mhm.
haven't done as much as we used to.
And we can ask private members
I
too,
think that's what we need to do is talk to some, even, yeah, well.
like Anna Sifkin, Laura's here.
Laura's got a lot of institutional
All of it.
history.
Seriously, I have historic stuff that was passed to me before I was a liaison even,
Right.
so.
Oh,
And Laura, I want to say you probably got the annual report that we have a representative give to the community. I did that a couple of years ago.
I have slideshows every time we presented to the commission since I've been here. I mean, I have. tons.
And the essence of that was like, hey, here's what we do and here's what we've done. That might be a good source of.
To start.
So is it, Bill want to start it and then Laura jump in, or what would be the easiest way to do it? Sure. I mean, the repository is a great place just to keep everything. And then eventually want to get that into tasks and duties that we want carried on.
Well, right, between Laura and myself, we can get it rolling,
Okay, awesome.
you know.
And a lot of it's online too, on the Historic
Yeah,
Preservation
that's
Board
right.
page. I mean, the application for the National Historic District is on there, the online design guide is on there.
Okay, and then the next thing I wanted to touch on was people. So each of the 5 boards will have 9 spots, like right now most boards have 7 like we do. So each will have 9 spots, so a little more capacity. But not double, obviously, and just looking naturally at whose terms were expiring and who was rolling off. It fits pretty well that there's some continuity with board members whose terms aren't expiring. And then there's some spaces for new board members. What we decided to do for the 3 of you and for all the advisory board members that joined, every year there's the same April 1st start date for new advisory board members, unless someone resigns and that needs to be filled before then. So for all 20 spots that we filled on April 1st, we put all those as just 1-year terms. And that was intentionally done because we wanted to just give you guys a flavor for what you're signing up for and not commit you to a board that you don't know what it does, the new board. And give you some time to kind of see how it works. Maybe there's a different board that you want to apply to in January when we're accepting applications, or maybe you want to reapply for the same board. Either will fine, will be open spots across the board. And we have 1 member, Phil, whose term is not expiring in April 1st, when the new boards will be effective April 1st next year, 2024. And so he'll roll into the new spot, the new board, automatically, and then there'll be several other spots available. Phil, you'll have, let's see, from economic development, it looks like Seth Davis and Jennifer Storff and Amy. I should have to say her last name, but I haven't met her yet. Bring more people there, and then on the environmental and sustainability board, you'll have Tim and David. So that, when I see that, that says to me, look, we're HPB light,
Right.
we'd like to have about probably 3 and 3 and 3, so we'll skew towards looking for someone that has experience in historic preservation when filling that spot next year, April 1st. So timeline again is everybody's board position, like the new boards will go into effect April 1st of next year. So we have about 11 months to get some work done in this structure. And then the new board structure will probably have 2 commission liaisons at least attending most of the meetings up front. And so a little more support to staff members up front as well. Not just to kind of help the new people get going and help create their work plan, but to make sure the work that they're doing has a lot of support and we can, fund, get resources for the work. Questions? Really? Burns? I know, everyone has the same concern that their work's gonna get lost, which is valid.
Right. And that's particularly, I think, with the group that we're being part of, I mean, because the others is more natural continuity and
Yeah.
linkage. And with this, 3 totally different boards have been doing totally different things.
It is the most disparate.
That's gonna be the trickiest one to figure out our overall work plan and structure, for how that's gonna work. Like you're saying, and make sure you have historic preservation represented, every year at board.
Yeah.
It's not even in the title, it can get lost. You could potentially in the future have a board with nobody with an interest in historic preservation on it.
Yeah, unless we put that into the charter, which we,
Yeah.
that's what our job is this year, is to create, what's the work plan and make sure that continues. What kind of people need, what skills do we need to do that?
Right.
Okay, Laura, you want to add anything?
So the transition plan,
Yeah. No, I talked too much. No, you did not. Okay.
you were very thorough.
Okay, so anything?
Yes. So as I told some of you who came in, I'm not gonna be here next month. Stephanie's gonna be here. Phil, if you could just let her know who everybody is, because I know everybody and their names and everything so that she can take attendance. She's gonna help with the minutes a little bit, but she won't. The Ascend Lebo is the name of our comprehensive plan. The website is ascendlebo.com. That's where you can find out where the comprehensive plan has gone to date. And there are also 3 surveys on it, one for, and this will sound familiar, mobility, one for resiliency, and one for community engagement. So as appointed leaders, it would be great if you could take all 3. We're really trying to push that out to as many community members as possible. So in your circles as well, if you could push that out, that would be great. It's for the month of April. And for the first time ever, we're actually asking very in-depth demographic questions as part of these 3 studies by request of the Community Relations Board. They wanted to be able to analyze the results from a DEI lens. And we didn't know if we were reaching all segments of our population and if they were being represented fairly whenever we go out to the community and ask questions. So
That's why, okay, people have been asking me why you want demographics now, why is it matter? That makes
correct.
sense.
For example, if we're missing a certain segment of the population, it might be important to know. So,
extra
and other things too. We asked them what ward they're from. So we could say, we could look at any of the questions and see how Ward 3 feels about it, for example.
Yeah.
So it's just a way to be able to have a more
Like
targeted, cross-section of the data. Again, I mentioned that I'm editor-in-chief of Mount Lebanon Magazine. One of the things that we've been talking about in our meetings is having more coverage of homes. People love to read about historic homes. If you in your travels and in your circles know of some historic homes and historic home owners, or even the design professionals that worked on them, again, we wrote a story about a Craftsman home and got a lot of good feedback. So some of our more tenured writers have moved on and have retired. So any connections you might have, we would appreciate sending those to us so we could write about them. Again, it also helps your cause as well, that people can examine historic preservation as it relates to their own personal situation. So, and maybe we won't have vinyl double hung windows put on a Tudor. So I think that's all I had.
Okay, excellent.
I guess that's the question.
Yeah.
What's the junior board member?
She is not here, so I did send her an invite. Once a year, the commission gets a list of high school students that want to be junior commissioners and junior board members. And they appoint 2 junior commissioners, 1 for each semester, and then they go through the other ones who check off their interests in various boards. So we have a junior board member who comes, and again, that's just another way to have it's really hard to reach that segment of the population, especially with some of our more officious type duties. It's just a really good way to maybe entice them to doing public service and give them an inside look at how their government works. So it's for transparency, it's for communication, it's for, again, covering that. So I think she will be done at the end of the school year. So if we get an application from anybody, somebody would start again in the fall. Although we've never turned anybody away if they wanted to continue to come during the summer, they're welcome to this public meeting. But we kind of release them from their obligation at the end of the school year. So it's a nice program.
Yeah, maybe one more meeting.
So this Ascend Lebo thing, I'm on, is there a draft that they had 50% already a review in March? Is that?
They were 58% of the way through that. Yeah, that is on there as well.
It is? Okay.
Did they give us a draft? Or like a
It's on there.
Yeah,
It's on there.
initial,
Trying to
like,
find
initial
it.
thoughts.
And every section is building on the section before it. So the first thing they did is they went out to some community events, First Fridays, Artist Market, and they just asked people, what do you think? And we did a couple of online surveys, and they took all that, formulated that, and then put that into the next phase and put them. So each phase builds upon the last one. So some of the people said, where are you getting the questions for this survey? There are things that were brought up in previous by stakeholders. And again, we've asked everybody, residents, business owners, visitors. You didn't have to live here. You didn't have to, wasn't one of those types of strategic planning where you just go to the leaders and just ask them, because we want it to be the community's plan. So that is scheduled to be presented to the commission and accepted in December. So we still have a ways to go.
Okay, any other questions for Laura? One thing I want to say, Laura is the best staff liaison. Clearly, she is wonderful. anytime you have a proper question, she somehow manages to come up
Yeah,
with.
she knows all the
Yeah, she-
answers and
She is very extreme,
I just know where to go to get them. That's right.
but
Yeah.
she's great.
That's the important thing to know.
Okay, historic signage, we don't have any report there. Brick streets, we've kind of already talked on, trying to bring the new folks up to speed on that. Publication, Alan, you have a report?
So I have 26 ideas.
Comprehensive plan, we're actually, the task group, I'm part of this meeting on Thursday, and I was gonna mention what Laura just mentioned about the Lebo, their comments already. Thanks for bringing that up. So yeah, participate in that if you can. Economic Development Council, Matt.
Yeah, we had a meeting on March 31st. There's a lot of interesting stuff discussed. I gave you a quick summary of a few points, only a couple of which really touch on historic preservation, but in any case. For active transportation plans, so the council is actively considering how to position Mount Lebanon to work with other municipalities and potentially PennDOT and applications to the federal government for grants for infrastructure. So there's an unprecedented amount of money available for infrastructure development. Lebanon sort of actively evaluating what options it might have. And since we are, a suburb with Dormont on the other side of us and other suburbs right in the immediate location, and we share mass transit facilities, I think there's a strong interest in working with other municipalities to see what sort of plans we might get funded. So that's an active discussion, which is pretty interesting.
Those would be federal funds.
Federal funds.
So who helps to facilitate that?
I'm sorry,
Who helps to facilitate like the working within like multiple municipalities altogether?
there's working groups. But it sounds to me like there's a fabric of different working groups on it, depending on what constituencies are beneficiaries of that. So, if you take the T line, for example, there's Brookline, there's Dormont, there's us, South Park and other communities right on that line. And I think that there's other communities that are adjacent that participate in discussions around, is it worth applying for funding for further development of the T line? But that's just one example, and there's other groups that are pursuing different projects. So the thought is, in terms of this funding cycle, that the funding is going to be available for well-organized groups. These applications are going to need to be fairly sophisticated, and because of that, the evaluation right now is what groups we have in common to pool resources to prepare applications, because the applications are sophisticated, not inexpensive themselves. So bottom line is, not surprisingly, we and other communities like St. Clair, who tend to take a fairly active, sophisticated approach to that, I think are probably leading a lot of this discussion. So that was the chief message on that point. On economic vitality, the Uptown Partnership has had a consultant which has performed a vibrancy index study of the Uptown Business District to help measure its vibrancy. So this is interesting. One of the conclusions is there's more first floor office usage than optimally desirable versus restaurants.
retail, I think, like restaurant retail.
Restaurants and retail, that's right. So the question is, what develops foot traffic? How does foot traffic help? This is belaboring the obvious, somewhat hindered by the construction dynamics in Uptown right now. But looking past that, the measure is what's optimal for a community of our size and stature to keep a vibrant Uptown. And so to me, just a very interesting thing is, again, a sophisticated approach to measurement and metrics.
You remember the percentage, did they say?
I didn't get the
I
percentage.
heard it before, like around 15 or 16, that's what we were. Percentage we were, but
Yep, and so when I run around and I feel like there's a lot of restaurant activity, I'm particularly aware of this because of how many cars are parked in front of restaurants in traffic zones, which drives me crazy. But the bottom line dynamic about it is looking past COVID, trying to understand what the situation will be really when we get COVID in the rearview mirror. And what would we like our municipality to look like, particularly the uptown area of our municipality. So this helps to measure that. Some of the dynamics about it that were very interesting were, is it desirable to have more office usage, and the fact of downtown office usage is lighter than it used to be because of COVID. Do we want to encourage office usage here? We've got some office buildings. It's great for second and third floor usage, but do we really want that on first floor? Because that's less accretive traffic. We're people go from one business to another. So anyway, they're measuring that, and that tends to be very interesting, and it's obviously in a great deal of flux because of COVID. Move on to the PHMC Design Guideline Grant awarded. There was a $10,000 grant awarded for the goal of setting up a new set of design guidelines for building fronts like facades. So a lot of times in communities like this, there's funding for improvement, preservation of facades, development of historic and architecturally significant facades. And so this is funding to improve a study along those lines. Then Vibrant Uptown, that construction is supposedly recommencing. My spouse would question that on the basis of she doesn't see anything going on. But suffice it to say that's supposedly starting. And lastly, commercial district update. This is the most interesting part of the entire meeting. Businesses and what's going on in vacant space. East End Brewing is open, more beers available. That's great. The former PNC Bank space continues to be explored for reoccupancy, and there's no bagels.
Oh.
So
Thought we were gonna get
for a while, I
bagels,
know they were
yeah.
exploring a business that, bagel business, and since Brugger's is closed, which I also hear about from my spouse, there's a crying need for bagels. If anybody knows anyone that really wants to open a bagel place, speak to the Economic Development
We've got
Council.
you, so we just don't have the spot.
The right spot. that
She's
works
still
in her
looking.
kitchen,
Is
right?
she still okay? More power
Good.
to her, supportive. So anyway, that was the last meeting, and our next meeting is on April 20th.
Awesome.
Hey, thanks. Historical Society, I attended a meeting last month. They're doing well. They're coming out of COVID pretty well.
Okay.
Visitation's up. They're doing more programming, more events. They've got some tours coming up this season. They've got a tour. Actually, I was interested in a Sunset Hills slideshow tour. We've had some discussion about that might be a direction we want to go with the historic district. So if anyone's interested in that particular tour, to learn a little bit about history of Sunset Hills, that's Thursday, September 7th. Unfortunately, I'm gonna be out of town. That's gonna be actually a slideshow tour. You don't even have to walk around. Well, those hills are pretty steep over there.
So where do you take this in? The slideshow tour.
It's gonna be at the History Center.
Okay.
Yeah. On September, at 6 p.m. on September 7th. There's walking tours at Virginia Manor, History and Commerce walking tour, Saints and Stained Glass walking tour. So, I don't know if you're members of the Historical Society. If you aren't, I can recommend becoming a member. I finally did it.
How many
I
years?
felt guilty.
Here, yeah. Showing up to their meetings.
Well, there's
Look at the credibility there.
Yeah. But no, I mean, it's a good association, and it's very healthy, and it's moving forward, so. Grace, I'm sure you will enjoy attending the meetings, a good group of folks. I had fun. Okay, next. Planning board, they're meeting tomorrow.
Yeah, planning board, I went to their meeting last month, which was March 21st. And the only project up for consideration was a new thing, a new structure the fire department wants to build. It's a training facility for their fire people. Apparently, they have to go all the way to North Hills to do their practice sessions at a training facility for Allegheny County in a park. So they're looking, they would really like something that not only our fire department could use, but surrounding fire departments, you know, Dormont, all these other volunteer fire departments could actually use it as well. To be closer to home, they can go practice their ladder skills and that sort of thing. And they want to have controlled burns in there too that they practice in. Anyway, so that was the only controversy. Everybody loves our fire department.
Yeah, and if you wouldn't mind, the control burns are very limited, like.
Yes, yes. and I've got my notes here. So this would be a structure that would be 37 feet tall. It's 4 shipping containers high. So they're basically shipping containers with stairs going between. So you can, it's like supposed to mock a building with many floors in it, a house.
It's the same height as the Public Works ice storage right now, and it
That's
was
right.
slated to go next to that, so I think visually it would probably look proportionate.
And they're
Oh.
going to paint it a cream color. So it, you know, it's not just going to be like these ugly metal containers. However, I don't know how they're going to keep it cream if they're having burns in there. I don't know. I did go to the Allegheny County facility and with the Citizens Fire Academy and went inside one of those burning things and the gear and everything. So I know what it looks like. It's all black in there. pretty amazing. But anyway, so it's 2 wide and 4 high, basically. And let's see, the fire training use hours would be 7 to 9:30 Monday through Friday, but not every night. It's just that's kind of when they're slated to use it.
7 to 9:30 p.m.
9:30.
Yeah, so when Public Works is like not usually there.
Right. They wouldn't be there every day. It's just that those are the kind of the hours the public would know that they could be there. They also said they'd have some Saturdays from 4 to 5 p.m. and that would only be for controlled burns. But anyway, they'd host SHACOG there for fire trainings. Wednesday, January to May and September to October. Anyway.
And my
So-
understanding is that right now, the fire department is already on that space most Mondays, weather permitting,
Right.
and they're using their hoses and their ladder trucks and they're practicing, they just don't have a target. So their ask is to put in
Right.
something.
And I remember when I did the fire academy, they did ladder skills for us at the public safety building. There's just no good place to do that. And you'd be surprised how much of firefighting involves ladder skills. It's a huge part of it. So anyway, the board, there was a discussion afterward. The chief came and spoke about it and answered questions. They're going to try to do some public outreach and put something on the website so the public knows what's being proposed. And the chief said he'd look into that. He also said if conditions environmentally are not good, of course, they would never do a burn on a super dry, hot summer day. And so there you are. Oh, and they'd also use theatrical smoke. It wouldn't always be actual burning. Okay, so the concerns from the board were people rubbernecking on cedar when they're out there doing stuff and maybe presenting a safety concern. So there was some discussion of putting up a screen, meaning with vegetative screen, bushes, something to block view from the street. Plus, I think the residents might appreciate that live across Cedar. There was concern about the smell of smoke. A lot of one board member in particular who lives actually kind of close did not like the idea of these controlled burns and smelling smoke. She said, we already have to smell the mulch that's sitting there in the public works yard. It smells like manure. Anyway, so that was interesting. And then let's see, line of sight. They've got the funding. Construction would start in 2024. So the planning board asked them to redo the landscaping plan to include a screening. And there was also discussion of kids getting in there at night and maybe, loitering or getting into trouble, such and such. But the chief was like, there's a public safety vehicle going through there to get gas at all hours of the day and night. So I don't think that'll be an issue. And I thought that was a good point. So that was that. And then let's see if there's anything else about that. Oh, he also talked about really how important the fire department feels the relationship with the community is. So they want to do a lot of public outreach about it and make sure that the community has buy-in for this project. So they moved to grant preliminary approval and did approve. There was only one person who voted against it. And it looks like it's preliminarily approved. That's my report.
On the public buy-in, that's the piece I heard a lot from the fire department on, is that they would like originally I asked them, why don't we put it over in McNeely or put it on the edge of town? And they said, well, we're proud of our training. We want to attract and retain new members and we want to have a connection with the public. You think people come and watch and want to see, the hoses going off right now in Public Works, and we would like to be able to support that even more. And so, being in the Public Works facility is a bonus for us from those perspectives. And then also being on the edge of town, you do get into the possibility of vandalism or people screwing around on the site when they're not supposed to be doing unsafe things, as opposed to, already pretty well trafficked area.
That's good. He did not mention it that way at the meeting. It's good that you said that, because he did not, it wasn't put that way. So it's
Yeah,
just-
like kids love to stare and watch, fires being put out. It could be
Yes.
a playground type activity. We got the little pocket park there at the corner, and then you get to watch the fire. It'd be at night probably usually, but maybe during the day they'll do some fun things.
Yeah.
Food trucks. Watch the firefighters work. That's what I'm seeing.
S'mores.
But I guess
Yeah.
for this board though, I guess I wanted to ask all of your input, as far as a historic preservation perspective on it, especially if there's a screen of vegetation, I'm not going to be able to see much of it, but I didn't really see the historic preservation angle to it, unless you guys have something. It is in the historic district. Does anybody have any ideas or thoughts that I could take to the board? Because the next meeting's tomorrow night, and I usually send an email to Ian about whatever I think they should consider.
I wouldn't think that particular location, and given what you're describing, would impact the historic value, because the homes are well above that, on that hillside behind that,
Right, and across the street.
the ones across the street, right? I mean, I can see the people across the street who are downwind of that being concerned. They're probably the ones that have the biggest concern rather than historic preservations, because the smoke will blow towards their houses, right?
That's right.
Probably gonna be I'm sure you're gonna hear complaints from them long term. Unless you
I'm a
can-
little worried about that too.
Because if you create smoke, even artificial smoke, the westward winds, it's gonna cross the street and it's gonna hit their house directly.
It's supposed to be similar. They're burning pallets just like they do now at Bird Park for Scouts. Right? Don't they have those big bonfires where they burn pallets? It's supposed to be the same, they're burning pallets, but yeah, I agree.
But
Smoke is a concern.
they're the winds going up the Parkway,
Yeah.
and here you're going so straight across into a residential area.
Right, Right.
That's gonna be a problem, I suspect.
And it's not a historic preservation perspective, but more from like an architecture and design perspective. Personally, I think that area might benefit from a consistent color palette.
Yes.
I don't know if that's applicable to our board, though. I could take that up on a different avenue.
Actually, I have a question sort of that triggers something. When you were mentioning the design guidelines earlier, and then with you mentioning something like paint color now, obviously I know that paint is not regulated by like historic preservation or any sort of national organization or anything like that. Is there an organization or authority that deals with like design facade at all here? Because it was housed in other, it's been a part of, it's been housed under historic preservation, or there's been a downtown design authority and stuff like that, so I wasn't sure.
No, there was an attempt several years ago to create a HARB in Virginia Manor, and there were guidelines created for that, and the community,
Didn't support it.
thank you.
Didn't support it. Got shut down.
Those are really pretty rare. You've got to have a pretty significant historic entity that you can convince residents that they're going to basically turn their rights over to a municipality, to tell them what they can or cannot do to their property. And our historic district really isn't that type of historic district.
But our municipal entities, our government buildings, we could create our own design guidelines and then choose to follow them or not. If we want, or look to you guys to do that. for us.
There's also just a consistent feature. And on the planning board of stuff that is architecturally challenging receives more local opposition. And I think, for example, that was an issue with respect to the townhouses that were considered over near
Jefferson.
Jefferson. So I think there's probably a pretty strong impulse. Let me say, I know there's a strong impulse among developers to take significant cognizance of architectural dynamics in communities like this anyway, where
Yeah,
you can expect opposition to
it
pretty
helps
much anything,
get their thing approved if they
right?
follow our guidelines. If we don't have,
But we have,
we don't have
the
that.
best guidelines.
Hey,
Okay.
we don't have any report from partnership design and they have, I don't think they've met, but Doug, in today's minutes, you'll see pretty comprehensive report there from Marianne. And she did meet with Eric and we're on, had a long meeting with him about an update on what's going on. Well, that's included with our minutes from the last meeting. All right, anything else for the good of the order?
I was gonna ask if we're meeting all summer or if we're taking any summer meetings off.
We don't usually plan ahead, and what you've given us is August deadline, so how can we afford to take this?
Meetings.
We'll blame you if we have the meeting.
Well, I'll just expect more meetings. Sounds good.
December is usually the month that this board has traditionally foregone because the third Monday of the month puts you right on the holiday week. So it's more a matter of not being able to get a quorum together.
Right.
I also know I'm not gonna be at the next meeting. Okay. So. Others.
That time of year.
Okay, well, the issue is always, we have to have at least 4 members present in order to have a meeting, so we have a quorum. That's the meeting.
Usually ask a week ahead of time.
I always send the agendas the week ahead, yeah, and then ask for a response by Thursday, and that's just because if we cancel it, there's a lot we have to do. We change it on the website, we put signage up, the last thing I want is for us to cancel a meeting and have somebody, again, get parking and walk in here only to find out we're not having a meeting, that it's not.
Because we're trying to get public comments and we're trying to get people to show up and participate or, listen, and then if we cancel the last second.
So yeah, usually the Thursday, so I'll send you the stuff the Monday before, I need responses by the Thursday before, and yeah.
Okay. I just want to say to the folks, this is the longest meeting I've ever attended on the preservation board. This is not normal.
It's now,
I second that. He's absolutely right. They're not usually this long.
About an hour.
yeah,
You know,
about an hour.
But I mean, there was a lot to try to, because we have so many new members to update you folks on, so that's why it took a little longer. So our next meeting will be Monday, May 15th. 5 p.m. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
The move.
Oh,
All right. And second.
I'll second that.
Favor, please leave.
Hey,
Bye,
Doug.
Marilyn.
Goodbye. Welcome, everybody that's new.